So, hey guys. Okay, hey guys. So, welcome to the third session of UI design. And if you are unfamiliar with these sessions, this is the third session in the series. We have been doing multiple sessions. Previous one was on introduction to Figma. Second one was on introduction to design principles. And this session is all about playing with colors. So my name is Sudhanva Acharya, and I'm currently working as product designer at AthrV-Ed. So what are we going to learn in this sessions? So in this session, we are going to learn about color theory, understanding color properties with examples from popular apps, Facebook, which is now known as Meta, WhatsApp, etc., and how to pick colors for your UI design. This is going to be a very, very super important session. So for folks who have missed it, I hope this was very, very necessary for you to actually designing screens. So yeah, that being said, so before starting off, make sure that you create notes and note down your questions so that we'll have a Q&A as usual at the end of the session. And you can also share the learnings on the internet. And coming to this session, that is playing with colors, visual design. So why I've added visual design? Like, why do you think colors is a part of visual design? Like, is it obvious, right? So colors is a fundamental thing about visual design or UI design in general. So here in this session, you're going to learn how to pick colors for your UI or user interfaces. Now for folks who are attending this session for the first time, here's a quick recap about what and all things we had learned in the previous session. I hope, I do know that this was like a very long gap, like we had taken a break of around nearly a month. So this is a quick recap about what and all we had learned in the previous session. So in the previous session, we had seen about design guidelines. So what do you mean by these guidelines? They can be called as fundamentals, they can be called as principles. Basically, they are used to troubleshoot your designs and often acts like a checklist. Like if you want to fix your design, like when let's say that you are redesigning a screen, so these fundamentals of visual design, like all these principles are going to help you to troubleshoot it. Like they're going to help you to fix all those designs, and they often act like a checklist. So under this fundamental, there are like 6 basic and very major fundamentals. That is, we saw what is balance, emphasis, hierarchy, repetition, proximity, and proportion. Where we had also seen examples around how these principles are being used to design user interfaces. And finally, we had also redesigned, like let's say a very bad looking screen, like which had a lot of issues with respect to hierarchy, proximity, contrast, and like we had redesigned it to this screen. So how and what, like you can find it out in the recording of the previous session. So links to all the recordings has been put up on our WhatsApp group. I hope you have all joined it, and Gautam has also dropped the link in the chat too. Okay, so now moving ahead. Yeah, find the recordings on the community too. So now moving ahead, let's say this session, the hero of this session is going to be color. So color is a most fundamental, very, very basic, very, very important piece of element in visual design, right? So you cannot, as a designer, you have to know how to handle colors. You have to know how to pick colors. If you do not know it, then colors can make or break your designs. So it's as simple as that. If you do not know how to pick colors, and if you do not know how to choose colors for a user interface, like let's say you're picking colors for light mode, you're picking for dark mode. So if you do not know how to pick colors, it will make or break your design. So it is a very, very fundamental and important aspect. So since it is a very, very important aspect, let us properly understand how to use colors and understand some of the basics around color. So before moving ahead, I want to have a quick disclaimer over here. This session, I'm going to cover colors only with regards to UI design. Now, color is a very, very vast and huge topic. So colors, you might have even heard about film, like color grading, or like picking colors for illustrations. So I'm not going to cover like all those topics here. I'm just going to restrict myself to UI design because that is the most fundamental thing. So like that is the basis of this session. So that disclaimer being said, let's introduce you to the first concept, that is color wheel. Now, how many of you seen this color wheel, guys? Like, can you just put +1 on the chat? Like, you might have seen this color wheel, like just to know that like you are all listening and like just to try to keep this interactive. So, like a lot of people like have seen color wheels. Like this is a very fundamental thing, which you might have learned in your 7th or 6th standard class, like all those color wheels. So here, color wheel is made up of infinite amount of colors. Thank you, guys. Thank you for putting up. Yep, and yes, thank you. So now color wheel comprises of a lot of colors, right? There are like infinite amount of colors. Now, in this bunch of these colors, how do you categorize them, right? So if you want to pick a color, how do you pick a color? So in order for you to pick a color, you need to know what are the categories that are involved in color. So some of the basic color categories are, you might have heard primary, secondary, and tertiary. So primary colors are blue, yellow, and red. So like even though like this blue is like sort of camouflaging with the background, but here is blue, here is yellow, and here is red. Why they're called as primary is these are like fundamental colors. You cannot mix 1 or 2 colors to get this color. As simple as that. So primary colors, what you have to do is you need to mix. Like these are the most fundamental and basic colors. So these are primary colors. So when you mix these colors in certain combination, you're going to get green, orange, and like several of these colors. So this is called as a secondary palette or a secondary color. So now if you mix blue and yellow, you'll get green, yellow and red, orange, and blue and red, purple. So now if you keep on mixing it, you'll get tertiary, and this is how a color wheel is been made. So primary is the most basic set. You mix those things, you'll get secondary, and then you mix those things, you'll get tertiary, and that is how you create a colorful color wheel. So this is how you can easily categorize colors in a color wheel. Okay, now keep this concept. This concept I'm going to use it at the end. So remember this concept: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Okay. So now moving on, let's go to the second topic, that is color spaces. So as a designer, you need to work at certain color space. Now, what do you mean by color space? Do you know what do you mean by color space? Have you heard this term, guys? Anyone? Have you heard the term color space? Like, what do you mean by color space or anything? Okay, so color space, like according to a scientific definition, its color space is just basically a specific organization of colors. Now, although like this is a definition, we really do not need to understand what exactly is color space. You must know that there are like 2 major color spaces. One is RGB and one is CMYK. I hope you have heard about RGB color space and CMYK, right? So RGB, as you all know, it is red, green, and blue, and CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Okay, so what is the difference between these 2 color spaces? What do you think might be the difference between RGB and CMYK? So RGB means when you're mixing red, green, and blue, when you're mixing it together, you get white. Okay. In stark contrast to that, when you're mixing cyan, magenta, and yellow, you're going to get black. Black is represented here as K. So when you mix RGB, you get white color. When you mix cyan, magenta, and yellow, you get black color. Okay, like that is a good to know information, but why these color spaces is important for you? If you are asking, RGB, as a UI designer, you need to be working in a color space that is RGB, because there are like hundreds of colors out there. There are like very vast amount of colors in the RGB color space, and a reduced color space or like a reduced set of colors is being there in the CMYK. Okay, so when do you use CMYK then? Like now if you're using like RGB color space for a UI design, then when do you use CMYK? If you're asking, CMYK you will use if you want to print something. Now let's say that like this is a t-shirt that we have printed from AthrV-Ed. So this exact t-shirt we had designed in the CMYK color space. Okay, why is that? Because if you're going to print something, now let's say that you're designing a t-shirt in RGB color space, it's going to look very beautiful on this screen. But after the printout, like after when you get it printed, now like the colors look dull, or like they might look like a little faded. Why that is? Because the printer which is printing your designs is using CMYK color space. CMYK color space is a reduced set, like it is a subset under RGB. Okay, So why printers are exactly using CMYK? Because it is very difficult and it is very expensive. Like the ink is very expensive. Like we cannot have an infinite amount of ink. Infinite amount of colors. So that is why printers are using CMYK. So if you're designing something for print, like design it in the CMYK color space. If you're designing interfaces, like let's say mobile applications and web application or websites, use RGB color space. So that is a prime difference between RGB and CMYK. Moving on to the third concept, very, very fundamental, very, very important. That is color properties. Listen to it carefully. So now you have, let's say, a certain color called red, blue, green, right? How do you define that color? You cannot say it like this is red, like this is green, or this is blue. They need to be some kind of a categories, right? So what kind of color properties are those which will help you to define a particular color? Okay. So there are three important and major properties in color. That is, one is hue, one is saturation, and third one is brightness. So HSB, or hue, saturation, and brightness. Using these three properties, these three fundamental and basic properties, you're going to define a particular color. Okay. So one second. Okay. So like there was like a glitch over there. So I'm just going to explain what is hue. Hue is nothing but basically a color. Now red is a hue, blue is a hue, pink is a hue, green is a hue, blue is a hue. Like that is hue. So now that is just the name of a color. Now saturation is the amount of intensity a color has. Now here there is an example over here. Now here we have taken pink as a hue. So this is hue. Now if you go from left to right, you can see that saturation is being decreased. Now here it is 100% saturation, here it is 0% saturation. So what is happening is here you are decreasing the intensity of a particular hue. Here it was, like sort of pink color, and when you decrease it all the way to 0% green, that is saturation. Whenever you decrease a saturation, you're going to get from absolute hue to gray. You're like that is how saturation works. You might have seen, like some mobile phones taking highly saturated colors. Now in the settings, if you play around with saturation, you get something like black and white or gray color. That is the same principle, like that is working over here. Like that is how saturation works. Saturation is nothing but you're going to increase or decrease the intensity. That is called a saturation value. Brightness is the amount of light in a particular color. Okay. Now, if a particular color, now let's say that pink is a color over here, and if it has 100% brightness, it means that there is 100% of light in it. The amount of light in a particular color is being represented by brightness. Now, if I go from left to right, you can see that the brightness of a particular color is decreasing, and at the 0% level, you can see it is pitch black. Why? Because there is zero light in it. There is zero light in the color. So that is how brightness works. Brightness is basically the amount of light in a particular color. Saturation is basically the amount of intensity, or like if you want sort of, let's say an example, like a masala in a food, like how much amount of masala is being represented by saturation, right? So yeah, like that. Now moving ahead, you might have now coming on to Figma. Now here is a color picker tool right from Figma. So here you can change the color spaces. Now Figma offers you color spaces around RGB, hex code, HSB, like all sort of things. Like you can define color in multiple different ways. So how you can change? You can just like toggle. Like here is a toggle for you to change this. And this gives values like hue, saturation, brightness, like how much amount of hue is there, and what is the saturation value, and what is the brightness value. So in this color space, like here, let's say that you're picking colors from this, right? So here, saturation is defined by the x-axis. Like the leftmost, like let's say the origin is gray, and then as you move ahead along the x-axis, you increase the saturation. And as you move along the y-axis, you increase the brightness. So this is saturation, this is brightness. So I hope this is very clear. As you move from left to right, you increase the saturation. As you move from bottom to top, you increase the brightness. And this is basically hue, like the slider, like as you can see, like red, yellow, green, blue, purple, like all these are called as hue. Okay. Now coming on to the fourth concept, that is HSB model. Now you know hue, saturation, brightness. Now why it is important? Like why is HSB model even important? Like why it is good to know? So you might have seen hex codes all around. Like let's say that you're a developer and you are developing an app. You will not be using HSB. You are going to use something called as hex codes. Now, this is an example for hex code. Now, you might have also seen, some people use RGB, red, green, and blue. Now, why HSB then? Why do you think designers should use HSB model, like instead of hex code or let's say RGB? Like, why can't you randomly choose colors? Why that is because if you see the hex code, it is very difficult for a human to interpret it, right? It's just a bunch of 6-digit code which no one like can actually like define it. RGB values are like some, let's say, some random combination of R value, green value, blue value, which also is kind of difficult for designers to interpret. So, but HSB is very humane, right? It is very humane model. Like what do you mean by humane is it is very easy to understand for a human. So like as I've explained about hue, saturation, brightness, it was very easy to grasp a particular color rather than going from RGB. Like you mix some red, you mix some green, and you mix some blue, you get some color. So now, like this is an example where I've taken pink, and this is the RGB value, and this is a hex code value. Like all these things are very difficult to define, so that is why you use HSB value. And the second reason is why to choose HSB is it is very easy to create color palettes. It is extremely easy to create color palettes using HSB model rather than RGB or hex code. How? What do you mean by, now before moving to that, let us learn about what do you mean by color palette. So color palette is a range of colors that is being used to design a user interface. Now, okay, like this is a definition, but can you give an example? So let's say that this is a screen, like this is a shopping app screen over here, and the range of colors that is being used to color this particular interface is called as a color palette, as simple as that. So here they have used red, orange, black, and whites. So this is a range, or this is a set of colors that the designer has used in order to color this particular interface. Simple. So that is what is colors palette. Now coming on to the main part of the series, that is main part of this workshop, how to create a color palette. So how do you pick or choose colors for your user interfaces, right? So how to create a color palette, I'm going to show it on Figma. I'm going to stop the screen right now. Okay. Okay, so I hope Figma is visible. Gautam?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, sure. Okay, so this is the file. So let me just hide everything over here. Okay, so now coming on to how to pick a color palette. So here I've divided everything into 3 different parts. That is WhatsApp analysis, make your color palette, and use the color palette to your UI designs. Now coming on to WhatsApp. Now, as I have promised you that I'll show how apps like Facebook, Meta or WhatsApp like uses colors, right? Like how do these companies or how do these designers pick colors, right? So now this is a screenshot of WhatsApp. So here what I've done is I've just created small rectangles over here and picked colors. So now what do you think is the relationship between all these colors? What do you think is the relationship between dark green, like all these colors? Like what do you think? Just take a wild guess. It's fine. Take a wild guess. Like, what do you think might be a difference, or what like is the relationship?
They're the same hue.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so like when I zoomed it out, like there was like some numbers over there. Very good. So they are basically same hue. So now here what I've done is I've just picked like all the hue colors. Now I've taken their HSB values, HSB. So now as you can see here, the WhatsApp has clearly used only 2 colors, 2 hues. That's it. only two colors. That is hue of some 167, that is around green, that is a brand color, and an yellow. Okay, that is 61. WhatsApp has clearly used only two colors, and they have played only with saturation and brightness. Simple. They have played around saturation and brightness. They have kept the same hue, and that is how you create a color palette. So if you're designing, let's say if you're coloring an illustration, for example, an illustration requires a lot of color. There will be a lot of hue. Now, if it is only like, let's say, like a tiny set of colors, it might not look that interesting. Although like there are like monochromatic illustration and like stuff like that, but a normal illustration usually contains a lot of hues, like a lot of colors. In stark contrast to that, in UI design, you need to restrict the amount of colors that you are going to use. Every color that you pick for your UI design should have a particular meaning. Okay, so you should have a decision in order to add a particular color, because when you're adding color, you're just adding to a visual noise. Okay, like let's say that you're adding too many colors, your interface will become too much noisy, and as a user you can't really focus on the content or whatever you want the users to focus on. So that is why you need to restrict the amount of colors. So that is tip number one. So for UI designs, you need to select your color, and then you need to select your blacks and whites. Simple, done. You need to select a brand color, and then you need to select your whites and blacks. And that is how you create a color palette, a consistent looking color palette. And then when you select your blacks and whites, whites means, obviously you'll get grays. Now, if you have attended a second session, you might have also seen the hierarchy, or yeah, it's like the hierarchy, like how I created a hierarchy for a particular text. I gave a black color to the primary text. I gave a slightly gray color to the secondary text. So that is why grays are important. So there are only like 3 or 4 sets of colors. One is your brand color, your black and white, and your grays. Simple. Tip, like for regular and beginner designers, do not add more than 4 hues. Now, whatever I'm saying, you can absolutely break it. It's up to you. It's not like a rule book where you have to follow it, everything like whatever I say. But this is like a good thumb rule and a framework. If you are starting out, it's better not to experiment too much, because you do not know what sort of UI principle you're breaking. So if you're an absolute beginner, take this step, take this thumb rule, that is, do not add more than 4 hues to your design. 4 hues means one is your brand, black, white, and grays. Okay. So now coming to make your own color palette. Now this is a dummy color palette that I've created. So here, this is, let's say I'm creating a hypothetical app for AthrV-Ed. So here I've selected a brand color that is blue. We use blue as a brand color. So this is blue. And how do I create a darker shade for my brand color? Now let me just bring my UI. Okay. So how do I create this darker shade? So it's basically simple. Now you just pick this color. It is on the same hue, that is 212, and I've just decreased the saturation and brightness. So that is how you create a darker shade of the color. And you create a lighter tint. Now your grays should be, one is a lighter tint, one is a darker shade. Simple, right? So you create your whites. So here you have created a blacks. Here I'm creating your white. So I'm just keeping the same hue over here, that is 212, and just playing over brightness and saturation. You can play around even with hues, like it's not like it's a mandatory that you have to stick with 212, but as a thumb rule, just stick with it. Okay, and just play around with saturation and brightness, and then make your grays having a hue similar to that of brand color. So this is how you create a set of black, white, and gray. And finally, you need to have something called as accent color. So what do you mean by an accent? So people, like, do you know what do you mean by an accent color, or where particularly you are going to use accents? Okay, so an accent color is primarily used if you want to grab the user attention on a particular screen. This is particularly used, let's say, in notifications. Now, like in the notification icon, you will be having that number on the top of like the notification icon, right? Like 1, 2, 3. Wherein as a designer, you are expecting it to grab the user's attention. So here you're going to use colors known as accent colors. And accent colors primarily are going to be complementary on the color wheel. Okay. Now, since this is my blue is my brand color, so I've just chosen this orange. You can also choose any of this like yellow, orange up to red. So just go the opposite so that will have a highest amount of contrast with your brand color, and that is going to stand out. Okay. So that is basically how also we have designed our own posters, and like in the poster, like you might have seen that link in bio, or else like join this workshop, like that, like those kind of icons, like we have kept it in the complementary color. So that is how even we also use it. So that is a pro tip for you guys. Now, like after you have selected your brand color, darker shade, lighter shade, and then all your tints, then it is the final time for you to color your design. So this is the wireframe that I've done. So this I've already done previously, but yeah, like this is very simple. Like I'm just just pick the frame and then chosen the colors. Like now here I've gone with a dark mode color. So here what I've done is I've just chosen the darker version or the darker blue to be the surface color. And then here I'm going to choose like for the primary text, here is going to be the lighter tint. And then for the secondary text, I'm going to use the gray. And then here are the brand colors that I'm going to use. And here is an accent color that I was talking about. Like you will use it in filters. Now, let's say that you have applied some sort of filters. Now you want to let the users know that you have applied some filters. You're going to use accent colors. You want to know the user that there are some notifications. You use accent colors. So this is how accent colors can be used in the UI design. So now a pro tip that I have not mentioned over here. Now, if you want to create quickly, like let's say that all these grays, there is a second trick to it. Now I'm just going to pick. Let's say I duplicate this. Okay. Now here I've duplicated. Now, if I want to create like a light and a gray version of it. So now what I do is I just make a light version. This I'm doing it randomly. You can also play around with all these numbers. So on this, now let's say that this is going to be my primary text. Okay. Now this is going to be my primary text. Now, if I want to create a color for my secondary text, now in order for me to give that hierarchy in a particular UI, what I can do is I can just decrease the opacity. Simple. Now I'll just decrease opacity. Now let's say I'll do it 60% or 40%. This is how I can create a hierarchy. This color can be gone to primary color. This color can be gone to secondary text. And let's say that there is some tertiary text. I can decrease the opacity. Now here is the number that is like where I'm changing the opacity. Just change the opacity. So now you can see that I've created 4 different colors easily with opacity. Now playing with opacity also is equivalent to playing with saturation and brightness. How? I'm going to show you here. Now here, if I just bring up HSB values, you can see that it is 797. Okay, it is 212 the hue. Here also it is going to be 212, and I'm just changing the brightness and saturation. Okay, now sorry. Now let me just pick a color over here. Since it's not like since I'm just playing around with opacity. Okay, so now here you can see that it is 212 and 5 and 51. There is like slight change over hue, but like saturation and brightness is what is getting changed a lot. So this is how you can create quickly all your whites and grays. Choose your brand color and then choose your blacks and whites, and then grays use opacity. That's it. So I hope this session was pretty useful, and that's it for this session. Let me just bring back my screen. Okay, Sudhanva, so I'll just bring back my screen.
Sudhanva, I don't know if I missed out, but did you show them how the hue, saturation, brightness toggle works on the Figma color wheel?
Yeah,
I think that would be a good, where you change the numbers. I think that would be a good. So,
okay.
Yeah, you can show it live on Figma screen itself so that they see the changes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
1 second, guys. Okay, so here, let's say I pick this same color, okay? Blue as my brand color. Now, how do you change the hue? Now I'll just duplicate it. And then here, I'm going to keep the hue the same. And saturation, I'm going to dip it because I want to create a black now here is a black, right? Like here where the black color lies. So now how to create that black? You're just going to decrease the saturation. Now let me just bring it to 12. So now it becomes less saturated. And then in order for me to create blacks, I have to just decrease the brightness. Say give the same number, 12. So voila, here you create your blacks. Similar fashion, you create a white. So let me just duplicate the same over here. Okay, so hue, I'm not going to touch it for now. How to create whites? Simple. I'm just going to increase my brightness over here from 89. Let's say I take it to 95. There is no thumb rule over here. Like what is the good brightness and saturation? You need to just like mirror your designs on Figma. Sorry, on your mobile phones. Like if you are doing it on like for mobile applications, and then like this is how you create those brightness. So let me just decrease the saturation to 10. So here I create a white color. I'll just increase the brightness. So like you can keep on just playing around with the numbers.
Sudhanva, I think if you just show how the whole cursor on the color wheel moves, it will be really great as you increase or decrease the color, the HSB values. Like instead of directly putting a single value, I think that would be really beautiful to look at.
Okay, sure. So wait 1 second.
So
let's move this
because while
down.
choosing the colors, you could also see while in it at the gradual increase and decrease in the HSB values.
Okay, sure. So how to change your like let's say now by default Figma uses Xcode. Now here is a toggle for you to change from Xcode to HSB. Don't worry about CSS or HSL, like that is not actually required and nobody uses it. RGB also people rarely use it. Just keep it at HSB, that is hue, saturation, and brightness. So hue, as I showed you in the PPT, this is hue. Like the slider is hue. Okay. Now let me just give a good color over here, and this is hue. Okay, so this is hue, and if I'm decreasing the saturation, here I'm decreasing the saturation. Okay, so now if I decrease the saturation of a particular hue, it will become gray. If I increase the saturation, it will turn into its original hue, and then like you can also oversaturate it. Now this is brightness, the y-axis. If I decrease the brightness, it will become pitch black. If I increase the brightness, it will become, like it has 100% amount of light in it. So y-axis is your brightness and x-axis is your saturation. So I hope this was useful. And yeah, like this is how you can change the hue, saturation, brightness in Figma. You can also obviously use these numbers, but numbers don't really make sense. You can obviously like play around with this picker over here. Okay, cool.
Also, another thing to add probably is handoff with hex codes.
Okay. 1 second. Okay, now someone asked me how do you pick the accent colors. Now let me just take this example itself. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring this color wheel down. You need not actually have this color wheel, but like a good thumb rule, this opposite color is called as complementary. Okay, like there are like number of like split colors. Like there is complementary, there is triadic color. Like there are like a lot of concepts over here, but complementary is good enough for now. So now how do I pick an accent color? Now since this is in this region of a color wheel, so I want the hue to be in this region. Okay, now this is how complementary works. Now since it is in blue and I want it around yellow and orange and red, I'm just going to change the hue. See, this is how you create an accent color. Simple. So originally it was in blue, in the blue shade region, and for me to bring it to the complementary side, I'm just, since I know like orange and yellow and red are in the opposite range of blue, I'm just going to change the hue to orange, yellow, and red. This is how you create your accent color. And obviously, like you can change, like you can obviously play with yellow, orange, red. Like that is a good colors for you, like for the accent colors. And just pick whatever looks best for your designs. and how you can know which colors to pick. Very, very important. If you want to improve your visual designs, it is by looking at real app interfaces. Okay, where do you find those? So where do you find those? I'm just going to go to Google, and I'll search for a website called Mobbin. Okay, mobbin.com. Okay, so now this is a collection of screens, right? From like you can obviously download these apps and take screenshots and then import it to Figma, but like you can get it online for free from this website. So here, like what you can do, you can just search for different apps over here. So search for apps. Now let's say that I pick Airbnb. Okay, like this is how you can just search for apps and then just download the screens from here, like download as PNG, and then try to pick colors, like try to see what kind of font they have used and what kind of spacing they have used. And this is how you improve your visual design skills. This will massively improve like your visual, like this is particularly if you want to design apps. If you want to design websites, you can go to another site called as Landing Folio. I hope Gautam, like you can just put the links. So landingfolio.com. So Landing Folio is a good site where you can get website inspirations. You can just download all these websites, screenshots, and put them over to a Figma. This is how you create your inspiration. Now, like for starters, you can just every day go to these websites, look at the screen, just try to consume good design. That is how you improve your design, as simple as that. If you want to improve something, you need to be around and you need to consume and you need to surround yourself with good things. If you want to improve your visual design, you need to just surround yourself with good visuals. And how you can surround, you can just go to this type of website. Like there are hundreds of websites like this. It's not only Mobbin. Like I personally prefer Mobbin and I've paid for like subscription. Like you can also take it. It's around like $1,800. And yeah, so that's it. Yeah, Gautam, like, is there anything that you want me to share?
I think that's about it. Did you mention about the hex code for the developer handoff?
Yeah.
I mean, just a mention. That's it. I mean, it's not important.
Hex code. Yeah, hex code. You can obviously change the HSB to hex code and then just do it and then give it off to your developers. Like if you know that developer, and if you do not want to do it professionally, but professionally, like the developer handoff, I'll just cover it in the next sessions. So sure. Like what kind of principles you have to use and how you can actually give it to a developer, and then what are the best principles and like best things. Okay, so
yeah.
So yeah, guys. So that's it. I hope you liked the session and you learned a thing or two. So if you have any doubts, I can take it up right now. And yeah, shoot your questions.
So I think
this is my.
I can stop sharing
profile.
the screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're sharing yours. This one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm also, guys, if you have any questions, you can connect with Sudhanva. I've just dropped the Sudhanva's LinkedIn link over here. And if you have anything related to design that you want to ask, you can connect with Sudhanva on LinkedIn, or he has also mentioned his Twitter and Instagram user IDs. He has just recently launched his portfolio website to I think Sudhanva, you can just link it in the chat. So where he has written case studies about his projects. So you can take a look and maybe give him some claps on Medium to appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's not clickable yet. So I'll just. Yeah, that's the link. So
okay, so how do you do like it? If you have any questions, you can ask it.
Yes.
I'm here to take up the questions.
If you guys have any questions, please, you can unmute yourself and ask. And if you're not yet join our community, if you're not yet on our Discord community, which is our exclusive, just to give you a look of it. Here it is. So this is our community. So we have our community wherein we share. There are a lot of channels for our discussions where we share our work, ask for feedbacks and showcase our work and a lot of things and connect with people. So if you are able to learn anything out of this workshop, feel free to post your work on the design channel, or if you need particular feedback, you can post it in the feedback channel and on showcase your work too. So yeah, I think you can take a small assignment out of this workshop, make your own color palette or identify color palettes of different screens, and maybe you could share them over here. So yeah, if you want to join this community, if you haven't yet joined, I'm putting the link in the chat. So that's the invite link, and you can hop onto the community server, and you can continue the conversations there. And also you have the WhatsApp group for you to join. And if in case if you are not yet on the WhatsApp group, you'll have to register for the entire series of this workshop, and then we'll be sending you the invites to the group. So here's the link for that. So I know it's too many links, so I hope you are able to navigate from that. So yeah, and do follow us on Instagram. I'm sharing the link for that too. Our user ID is @AthrV, so that's our Instagram. And also, if you want us to same as the same we have on LinkedIn too, so you can follow us there and do mention about your learnings to us. Any questions, guys? Drop in, unmute yourself and ask.
Any
Yeah, so
questions, feedbacks?
Yes, any feedbacks, particularly if you have, please do mention it.
How did you like it?
Yes, if you want, I'll just stop